opinions that are somewhat extreme on some things. I don't believe that our pharmaceutical industry would exist as we know it today without the food processing industry. I think we've had more change in human diet in this country since World War II than all previous human history put together because of the rise of the food processing industry. So I'm a big proponent of paleo for that reason. I think we have to get back to what the body can process and manage. The EPA helps to manage inflammation. DHA has to do with neurological function and cell membrane structure. In animal model studies, when they have restricted DHA, they found no change, no markers of change in the first generation. In the second generation, they found minor changes. The third generation, they found major neurological deficit. I think we're seeing third generation effects in our society. We have all these diagnoses, our rates of increase in diagnoses of ADD, ADHD, autism, Asperger's, Alzheimer's, neurological consequences, partly because we no longer have the same amount of these fatty acids we need for structure coming in from our dietary sources. So we use fish oil supplementally to try to raise those. Grain-fed beef would be higher in EPA and lower in arachidonic acid. Corn-fed beef, much higher in arachidonic acid, much lower in EPA. So our choices of quality in our foods are important too. But supplementally, we use fish oils. Now, there are a lot of differences in quality, whether or not they've been screened for heavy metals or some of the pesticides, whether or not they're triglyceride forms or not, how the body processes those. Are we able to digest well enough right now to manage high doses of oils? They're very effective for managing inflammation. How much can we process at a time? We may have to spread those out through the day. But they have definitely been demonstrated to help manage inflammatory responses. Then there's another kind of oil to talk about, coconut oil. I don't know how many people are already
Terry,
using.
just to go back, do you have a dose that you like on fish oils?
Okay. When possible, I try to get people to use a liquid form because it's the most concentrated, and I aim for most people who are inflamed, I aim for 5 to 10 grams, which is about 1 to 2 tablespoons of a liquid oil per day. I think Dr. Roscoe uses more than that. That's the level that I use. Part of my concern is, can people process it well? Are they able to process it when they're inflamed? And so we may bridge from that and we use other things along with it.
If, like my husband had his gallbladder out, I mean, that's been a couple of months now, could he handle that?
I'm not sure if he could handle that much at one time. He might need to use
Spread
smaller
it out.
doses, spread out with meals through the day.
Okay.
And to manage something like that, right?
Okay.
Coconut oil is a little bit different. Coconut oil is a saturated fat, so we have parts of the industry that would vilify that as a saturated fat. Saturated means it cannot oxidize. The bonds are saturated. It's not going to go rancid. It can sit at room temperature for a year and not go rancid. Coconut oil has types of fractions of fatty acids in it, some that help manage viral infections or fungal infections. It has butyric acid in it. We mentioned earlier that the Bifidobacter strains in the colon produce butyric acid, one of the fatty acids that manages inflammation in the colon. Coconut oil has that already. So it helps manage inflammation in the system. It helps to improve metabolic rate. It seems to speed up thyroid effect, partly because it's displacing some of the inappropriate fats, some of those polyunsaturated, monounsaturated oils. We're getting all these things from vegetable oils that the body has been using because that's all it had. The short-chain fatty acids and medium-chain fatty acids that are present, some of those serve as fuel. Medium-chain triglycerides is part of the way the body stores energy for use later, and that's present. So there are those who are using coconut oil as fuel sources as well. One physician writing a book right now has written a book about using this to help manage her husband's dementia, because this was a fuel source for the brain that did not require insulin. And she's shown reversal of his degree of impairment, that he's able now to care for himself during the day, but he was not able to do that. So I think there's a lot of issues there. The unsaturated oils, they'll oxidize very easily, increase inflammation, impair immune response, increase aging. Age spots have to do with how those oils become rancid, how those oils oxidize. So we have all kind of minor things that flag. They reduce metabolic rate, they slow thyroid response, and they damage mitochondrial function, which is how we make energy within the cells. So, without throwing many other little bits and pieces in, I think coconut oil is very useful. I think that's something that we can all bring in. I have seen a lot of patients, when they began to bring it in, actually had to go slow, because it does seem to raise metabolic rate. So a lot of people who, that first day they tried to put a tablespoon in, they would, or a couple of hours after that meal, their heart would be racing, they'd feel really wired, because it's releasing more thyroid effect. We're helping to boost metabolic rate, so we sometimes have to start slow and build up to that. But that alone can help people in losing weight, because we're wasting metabolism to do that. I'm going to turn it back to you. And I do have copies of a handout that bridge from the paleo all the way over to those little tidbits.
Well, I think that was fantastic. We're going to do a Q&A afterwards, and we'll both be here. So I have really nothing to add. I'm just going to, in terms of information, I'm just going to kind of give my perspective, and I kind of took some notes. First off, we wanted to keep it, again, the supplements small, because again, that same problem is, just to do it every single day, maybe during intensive periods, maybe more supplements will be helpful, but I think we've kept this pretty small, and this is really very doable for people on a day-to-day, monthly basis. Probiotics. We can't emphasize this enough in terms of dysbiosis. More and more people, thankfully, some of my fellowship projects were in gut bacteria, and back then it was kind of a fringe group. I mean, we all, we burned incense and had lava lamps, and then we did studies on dysbiosis. But now this has kind of become into the mainstream, and you cannot pick up a GI journal, a gastrointestinal journal, without reading a new article about gut flora. It's, a lot of people consider it an organ. It's an organ. And Terry focused in on inflammation, which is absolutely, the gut flora is definitely involved in the immune system. And some of the interesting articles that you'll see is that people who are on probiotics get less colds. If they get flu, it lasts for a shorter period of time. So it's not just about the gut. And I think that's the other big message, is that unless your gut is in shape, the rest of your body is not going to be in shape. And that's why I became a gastroenterologist. See, we are the most important organ system. So I tell people there is more how many people take a multivitamin? How many people do you know take a multivitamin? And that good stuff like Centrum. You sell Centrum at Madison Road, right? You can get some Centrum there. But at any Centrum Gold. But at any rate, there is more data to support the use of a probiotic than there is for the use of a multivitamin. And in fact, some of the multivitamin data is pretty sketchy. It is a numbers game. Terry gave how many pounds did you say?
3 pounds right here.
100, but given another perspective, there's about 100 trillion bacteria in your gut, and there's about 1 trillion cells. So there's a twofold increase in gut bacteria. So it's a philosophical question if you want to go get your lava lamp out and who's running who. I mean, there's 100 trillion bacteria. There's 1 trillion of me. Maybe we're supporting the bacteria, and the bacteria is really running the show. But so the point is, it does become a numbers game. If you have to travel through the entire GI tract, a lot of those bugs are dying, and the acid and different things. So I think the higher number species of products are probably better, and all the ones that Terry had mentioned are very, very good quality products. VSL3 probably has the most study behind it. That doesn't mean it's the best, but they spent some of the most money, and it actually is pretty interesting because they took on mesalamine, and some of my IBD patients will know that as Asacol, one-on-one, and in moderately active colitis, VSL3 proved to be as effective as Asacol, And this was a double-blinded, controlled, studied, all the bells and whistles that doctors like. And so VSO3, but I don't think there's anything special about VSO3 per se, but I think the more important overarching message is that probiotics are very, very helpful and very, very important for all of our health, whether we have gut disorders or even arthritis. Foods, I couldn't agree more. I think people who think they're getting probiotics and they're eating yogurt, it's like, and especially Yoplait, or, all that other garbage and pasteurized stuff. I mean, if it tastes good and you like it, I don't have a problem with it. It's not paleo though. Dairy's not paleo, you're really not getting your right amount of bugs. You'd have to eat what, about 10 servings or
10 cups to get 15 maybe.
yeah, and that's clear. Now I do, again, if you want to get fermented food, do it yourself. I'm all about scratch. If you can make it from scratch, it doesn't get any better. But for those of us who are afraid of bugs, there is a company called Rejuvenative Foods. Are you familiar with them? They're a bunch of hippies out in San Diego. They're oh man, okay, yeah. Just like, oh my God, the 70s are calling. But they have very, very good products. They cost, you probably have to give them a kidney or something when you go to buy them at Earth Fair. They're very, very expensive, but they are delicious, and they kind of in and out of Earth Fair. They're kind of tucked away in the corner over there where they have the salads, but these are true fermented foods. They have fermented salsa, that's very, very good, sauerkraut, or as Terry said, do it yourself. Because it's very expensive for them to send that from San Diego with the heavy glass. True story. We were trying to keep it in our office. This was many moons ago when I wasn't in Alabama, and we had it sent to our office, and the thing exploded. It was during the summer, and because there is such a high amount of bacteria, this disgusting thing was, well, this is yours. It's like, no, this is yours. But some of the jars actually exploded because this is lively stuff. Colonization. I do agree that probably, for the life of me, I'm blanking, but it's around the age of 2 or so, your gut flora is kind of written in stone. And probably it has an interaction with your immune system. So the gut flora, gets in line with the immune system. They're shaking hands. They know each other. So they say, all right, guys, we recognize you now, so we're not going to kill you. And the gut flora says, thank you very much. And they go on through life. So if you don't take your probiotics, probably all that good stuff will not last. I don't believe it entrenches itself. What I normally say for folks who are not super duper sick, maybe irritable bowel, what have you, stay on it intensively for about 3 or 4 months, and then you can kind of spread it out, because they're probably going to last, but if you stop it all together, say bye-bye. So I do think that at least 3 or 4 times a week, it should be just something that you do. Find one that you like, maybe mix them up, find a couple that you like, mix them up, but I think everybody should be on a probiotic. Digestive